Hello, I'm Riverside County Superintendent of Schools, Kenneth Young. The video you're about to watch contains a very important message for all of California's educators. We're also disaster service workers, and in times of catastrophic events, such as earthquake or fire, many of us will be called on to lend a helping hand. At the Riverside County Office of Education, we are pleased to offer this video to help with that preparation. We would also like to thank all of our partners in this production. It was made possible, in part, by a U.S. Department of Education, Office of Safe and Drug-Free Schools, Readiness and Emergency Management for Schools grant. Thanks for watching and for being prepared.
A disaster can occur at any time, while you're at work or while you're at home. If disaster struck right now, would you be prepared? Do you have a plan for your home, your family, your pets? Have you created an emergency supply kit at home and for your car? Does your family know what to do in your absence? As a public school employee, you have a legal responsibility to the public, in addition to ensuring the well-being of yourself and your family. Does your family know what is expected of you? Being prepared at home and with your family will allow you to focus on your job as a disaster service worker. According to California state law, Title I, Section 3100, all public employees are declared to be disaster service workers subject to such disaster service activities as may be assigned to them by their supervisors or by law. This includes all public school personnel. Disaster service worker status can only be invoked during a disaster declared at the city, county, state, or federal level. Your county depends on traditional emergency workers, such as law enforcement and fire personnel, to respond on a daily basis to incidents in your community. As a public school employee, you are another type of emergency worker, sometimes referred to as a frontline responder. Although it's not your primary job to respond during a disaster, as a public employee, state law requires you to fill an auxiliary role as a disaster service worker. Do you know what that means? The law requires all public employees to take an oath affirming their disaster service worker status before entering the duties of employment. School employees are formally obligated to become disaster service workers in the event of a crisis. Some schools have contractual stipulations that require an individual to stay for up to 72 hours, even if a disaster has not been declared. This contractual agreement is not to be confused with disaster worker status. It covers other kinds of crises. For instance, when police activity compels a school lockdown. What exactly may be expected of you in a real emergency?
Okay, the governor just called. He's declared this county a disaster area. So as of now, that means you're all disaster service workers. That means you're going to have to contact your family, let them know 2 to 3 days.
I gotta check on my kids. I don't know what happened to them.
I can't be here. I need to get home to my dog.
I don't understand this contract. What does that mean?
Will this be you? With the right preparation, you can avoid this situation. By taking a few simple steps, you can be ready to face the disaster and be part of the solution. The state recognizes 13 disaster service worker assignments. 9 of these assignments are specialized and will be filled by professionals in those fields such as doctors, firefighters, and police officers. All other individuals will be assigned to one of the 4 general areas of administration, human services, logistics, and laborer. You will not be assigned a duty that you are incapable of performing. However, you may be assigned duties outside the normal scope of your employment. For example, if you are bi or trilingual, you may be asked to serve as a temporary translator in support of an evacuation shelter at your school site. Other possible tasks include registering people at a shelter, translating for non-English speakers, handling phones or carrying messages, or serving food to emergency staff. Every public employee should receive an overview of roles and responsibilities of a disaster service worker, such as this video. In addition, there are other training requirements of public employees. As a school employee, you should take 2 courses, one mandated by the state of California and the other mandated by federal regulations. The California Standardized Emergency Management System requires public employees to take an Introduction to the Incident Command System, otherwise known as IS-100 for schools. This training best describes the command system that all public agencies should implement during a disaster. The second course is an Introduction to the National Incident Management System, otherwise known as IS-700, created by Homeland Security Presidential Directive No. 5. This course expands upon the roles of a disaster service worker and the Incident Command System. These 2 courses are the minimum required for any public employee. If you serve in a critical response role such as principal, superintendent, or crisis response team member, you are required to take additional courses. You may choose to obtain other training to enhance your abilities to respond as a disaster service worker, such as first aid CPR, mass care and sheltering operations, and other courses offered through the American Red Cross. A unique specialized training that not only supports the initial response at your school site, but also has potential to assist the greater community is the Community Emergency Response Team course, also known as CERT. Under the U.S. Citizen Corps, this training certifies individuals to respond as CERT members with skills in basic triage, light search and rescue, fire suppression, and other crucial elements of incident command. This training is just part of your preparation. Thoughtful planning also must be a priority.
Okay, now if the big one hits while we're off doing our separate things, I think it would be a good idea if we met at the park. Maybe the basketball courts.
I don't think that's a good idea at all. If we met at the park, that's 6 blocks away. And there's an overpass between here and there. I don't want the kids going over an overpass after a big earthquake. I think that we should meet at the community center. If we met at the community center, it's only 2 blocks away. The kids know where it's at. And I think all of our neighbors are probably going to meet there too. We'll have a support system.
Be Red Cross ready, which is make a kit, make a plan, and be informed. Know what your hazards are. Make sure you have contact information for your out-of-state relatives. Have a plan for all of this and how this is going to work in case something does happen.
As a disaster service worker, you'll be more likely to stay at work or more comfortable returning to work if you know your family's safe at home. Complete a family disaster plan. The family disaster plan will outline what you need to do before, during, and after a disaster. But don't stop there. Practice your plan as a family or individual. Family disaster plan outlines helpful tips for you and your family. Select a family meeting place in a safe area outside of your home in case you need to evacuate your home. Having an out-of-town contact for your family and members to check in with and be the conduit of information for your family members. If you only have one chance to make a call, contact someone out of the area and not risk getting a busy signal reaching out to someone locally. Having a plug-in phone in the house in case electricity is interrupted. It's always important to know how to turn off your gas valve, but only do so if you smell gas. Practice makes perfect. Making sure everyone in the household knows exactly what they need to do, who to contact, or each of these helpful steps that are listed in that family disaster plan can make a difference between life and death.
Here is a list of critical family home emergency supplies. Water, non-perishable food items, a can opener, first aid kit, flashlights, battery-powered radio, extra batteries, medications, blankets, family emergency plan, and emergency phone numbers. For more information on creating a useful home emergency kit, you can consult these websites. Of course, it's also important to be prepared while going to and from work or when you're traveling. It's helpful to have a go bag that's kept in your car. This should include a first aid kit, a change of clothes, and comfortable shoes, personal hygiene items, a flashlight, battery-powered radio, extra batteries, some water and non-perishable food items. And again, don't forget your own list of home emergency numbers and plans. All this preparation is aimed at helping you to respond promptly in an emergency. Once your family is secure, you may be expected to report as a disaster service worker. If disaster strikes while you are at work, you should first protect yourself and those in your charge, including students. Then, report to your supervisor or incident commander for additional directions. Always refer to your school's emergency plan for proper procedures and guidance. Under the Incident Command System, schools and district offices should develop a schedule which allows people to work in shifts, so no one individual is working for an extended period of time. Even though you may not be able to return to your home and your family, you should be given the opportunity to rest. Every school district should have a mechanism in place that prioritizes individuals for release from duties. For example, those individuals with small children may be released before those individuals with no family members nearby. Or, if your skills are not needed at the current time, you may be released with the understanding that you may be called to report later. But what if you're at home when a disaster strikes? First, ensure that your home and family are safe and secure. If you have not already been contacted by your employer, follow your organization's protocol for checking in. It's possible that phone lines and electrical lines will be down. If this is the case, use a battery-powered radio or your car radio to listen for reporting instructions and any other pertinent disaster-related information. Certain radio stations are designated for emergency broadcast services. It is important to identify these stations before a disaster strikes. Self-reporting to your work site is not recommended. Roads may be unsafe or your services may not be needed. If you are summoned to your work site, make sure that you bring proper identification, including your disaster service worker card, if you've been issued one, and your work ID. Also, don't forget that go bag. Of course, a typical education employee spends at least 40 hours at work each week. It's equally important to be fully prepared in an emergency there, too. Every school facility should have its own emergency response plan. By being familiar with this plan, preparing your own workspace, and knowing your duties in a disaster, you'll be able to serve your school and community with efficiency and confidence. Once again, it's smart to have another kit of emergency supplies at work. You may want to vary the contents according to your immediate needs. Schools should maintain their own site preparedness storage areas with a larger volume of emergency materials. These are meant to sustain staff and students during a disaster. Public school employees who are summoned as disaster service workers by their employers are to be financially compensated for their time. School districts and county offices of education are able to apply to the state for reimbursement of costs during a declared disaster. Application is made through their county office of emergency services. It is important that the school district or county office of education is compliant with all federal and state planning and training mandates in order to receive this reimbursement. Disaster service workers are eligible for workers' compensation benefits while performing assigned duties or undergoing any authorized training activities.